Welcome to the Higher Energy Superpower. This is episode 7 of the Turbo Duo cast. I am your host, Salvatore Mata, and with me always is the smooth, the sultry, the sexy, the very celibate, Trenton E. Wright III.
Esquire. Thank you.
I emphasize the celibate.
Yeah. Forgot the hetero life mate.
So, any ladies out there, if you're, possibly interested in locking down this
Hey ladies!
big hunk of man, or guys, I don't want to discriminate that.
Yeah, we can't do that.
I don't want to exclude anybody.
No.
I heard
All are welcome.
I heard there were a few ladies that might be interested, or not interested, but we're talking about you.
I haven't heard yet.
In a very favorable light, a very favorable light. Like,
yeah, as long as they see me in a dark light.
No. It was just Trenton's looking, very handsome, very
No one's ever said that. You were talking to my mom, weren't you?
My mom, your sister, your mom,
right,
and my wife.
That's fine.
Couple of quick notes here. Rupee joins the Turbo Duo.
Rupee!
The Turbo Duo has acquired a canine friend just a couple weeks ago. So we've got Rupee joining the posse. You can see that on Instagram. He's guiding all of our gaming,
a guiding light, so
gaming
to speak.
decisions from here on forward. Hold on, let me sip my tea.
Oh, there it is. That's good podcasting right there.
It's a cinnamon blend from Harney & Sons. Harney & Sons over at Target. Very, very well-made teas. A couple of show notes for last time. So last podcast was on Beavis and Butthead. I said the word amazing 13 times.
You actually wrote that down?
I listened to the podcast to see how many times. I had like a clicker with me to tell me how many times
amazing.
I said the word amazing. So
that is amazing.
I'm going to try my best to do less than 13.
That's your thing now.
Less than 13.
The amazing Salmota.
We had a question about Raiden or Raiden and how to pronounce it.
There was no question. From who?
Well, how would you say to pronounce it?
Raiden, like Mortal Kombat.
Okay, it's
Raiden.
not. It's not. It's Raiden.
Raiden.
It's not. It's Raiden. I looked this up. So
I go by whatever Mortal Kombat tells me.
Again, why you're at where you're at in your life, for reasons like that.
Hey, I'm still
letting
happy.
Mortal Kombat decide your decisions. I'm glad you're happy. I'm glad you're very happy. But so Raiden is kind of like an amalgamation of two words, real quick. Rai, which means thunder, and Den, which means lightning in Japanese. So it's actually pronounced Raiden. I never knew that. For 20 years I've been calling it
Allegedly.
Raiden. You keep saying allegedly when it's backed by research.
It's still alleged.
I also said that Raiden didn't have music, I thought, and that's not true.
There's a lot of Raiden talk, huh?
Listen, Raiden's a good game.
We've got a long way to go then.
Listen.
We're just talking about Raiden and how to pronounce it.
Well,
we're going downhill.
But all right, for anybody who is unsure about getting into shooters because they're sort of ominous and they think that they're going to be too crazy, Raiden is a good place. It's kind of like in the early middle in terms of like difficulty, where you can actually play it and have fun and get through a good portion of it without feeling like you're getting punished. So
Sure.
It's just one of those things. Raiden's a good game to play if you've never played a shooter before.
Also,
so Raiden.
We're still talking about Raiden?
Well, no, Raiden had music, but there were Jaguar games that didn't. Cybermorph.
We're getting into Jaguar talk now? All right, let's just throw these notes out.
Trevor McFur.
No one knows that game.
Doom.
Besides us.
Doom and Alien vs. Predator all did not have music.
The more you know.
There was also some talk about games that we thought were 7s. So I'm just going to run through this real quick. Italian Job. First of all, Italian Job came out 5/3/2002.
Very late.
Very, very late. Like, PS1 had already been out for like a year.
So the Italian Hand Job must have came out on the PS3.
2007, definitely.
Yeah.
It got a 73 on Metacritic.
That's a 7.
Mega Man Legends 73 on Game Rankings.
That's a 7.
Super Dodgeball 7 from Nintendo Life in 2008 because
That's a 7.
GeForce 70 average on game rankings.
That's a 7.
Gex 2 PS1 was an 81 and 64 was a 60 on game rankings.
Yeah, but if 80 and 64, you add those up, it's 144. Divide that by 2, that's a 72. That's a 7.
Scarface 73 on Metacritic.
Boom, 7s.
It was not 1080i. It was 720p, but Enter the Matrix was 1080i.
Oh, okay.
So, if any
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
He's relevant now again.
Yeah.
Also, we didn't go to Sounds of the Underground on July 8th. We went June 25th.
Okay, that is under protest. Okay.
No, this one's not alleged. That's when we went.
All right, guys.
So next topic.
We got in a little heated texting battle back and forth because
as in you did, and I was just like, this is the day we went.
Yeah, one of our listeners told us that
my man's in them.
Told us that June 25th was the Sounds of the Underground.
And the only reason he knew...
It doesn't really matter, but...
No, yeah, but...
Concert Archives said it was on July 8th.
Yeah, the only reason he knew is because Return to the Pit. They're the ones that take photos from, like, every show, and they were there.
Who's Return to the Pit?
It's an Instagram page. Well, there's a website. They like, keep photographs of, like, every hardcore show from back in the day that were in New England, because they would go to all the shows, and they post them.
Oh.
And June 25th was last week, and that just happened to be... They happened to post it that day, like the day after we put the podcast out, and he saw that, and he sent it to me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's the day," because I questioned it because you said Poison the Well wasn't there, and I was like, they definitely were.
Well, they were on the tour.
Yeah, and we didn't. Yeah, there was different bands on some different dates, and then Madball wasn't at the one we went to either. So, but either way, it was a hard show.
I can only follow what the research has, and Concert Archive said on June 25th was Gwar and Opeth in their own show.
Well, yeah, that's why you can't.
So why would I trust that date?
Yeah, well, that's why you can't do research on the internet.
Right. I'll break out my microfiche next time. I'll go to the local library. I'll break out a microfiche.
Cite your sources, sucker.
Speaking of citing your sources, what did not get a 7, going back a couple podcasts, Road Rash 64, 5.5, 4.5, 4.5, 2.5.
Is this turning into like the Dave Meltzer report?
I'm just saying. Somebody gave Road Rash 64 a 2.5.
Yeah, they were for EGM, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck Dave Meltzer.
This is not a wrestling podcast. Quit your wrestling.
That's kind of what
jargon.
it is. It's like, oh, this was a 4-star game. 4 stars. 4 stars.
How could you give Road Rash 64 a 2.5?
They must have had it. It's probably some conspiracy. They had something against the Road Rash series.
A 2.5?
They got paid off to give it a bad review.
2.5 is like unplayable.
I understand what a 2.5 is. That's Superman for 64.
I don't even know if Superman's a 2.5. I would give Superman like a 4.
Like Bubsy 3D is probably a 2.
Bubsy 3D.
That's you're saying Road Rash and Bubsy 3D are the same game.
It's heresy.
Yeah.
Heresy. Time for our modern retro moment, which moving forward we're calling our "It's Still Real to Me, Damn It" moment. And this is going back a couple weeks ago now, but E3 did happen, and I just wanted to make a couple comments here, going back to some games that are sort of in the retro scene that have gotten new life in modern gaming, which is really cool to see. These throwbacks coming back to old games, either from the 8-bit or 16-bit or 32-bit era, that are getting new releases or even whole new games. The kind of the big one that everybody talks about and has known about is Link's Awakening, which I don't know if you ever played that on Game Boy. Link's Awakening.
No,
it was the around Link to the Past.
No, I know. Yeah, I only played the Super Nintendo one, but I know it looked very similar to that one. And I know they're remaking it on the Switch. Right?
It looks really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that graphical style. It's almost like that. It's not top down, but it's not side to side. It's almost like elevated just a little bit, and it's still got that kind of room to room movement.
Yeah.
It's one of those Nintendo cute games, but one that has a lot of charm.
Ooh.
So I just played through Link's Awakening maybe 4 months ago on Game Boy, which I never play through Game Boy games, but it was one of those. I hadn't gotten my Nomad back, I needed something to play in bed.
Yeah.
Hadn't popped a Blue Chew yet.
Right.
And Link's Awakening was kind of an attraction.
Did you have a little magnifying glass light on it too?
No, because
you didn't play the OG Game Boy.
No, because I play it on the modified Game Boy Advance.
Oh, right.
So I get the
backlit.
I get the poppin' backlit color. But so I'm really excited about that. That comes out on September 20th, and I mean, can it be bad? I don't think it can be, but it's.
I doubt it.
What's funny about like those Game Boy games is when you look at like a very very early Game Boy game, they look more rudimentary than I would even say a Nintendo game. But a lot of the later games, a lot of the more refined games, almost look like they could have been Super Nintendo games if they had color in them.
Oh yeah, the big sprites.
Yeah, just
like even Kirby's Dream Land on Game Boy. That was kind of the one I remember. There was a lot of detail in that.
Yeah, Kirby's Dream Land.
Yeah.
Link's Awakening was a good one. I didn't play a ton of Game Boy. Oh, what about Super Mario
Six
Mario
Golden
Land,
Coins?
Land 2, the Golden Coins one?
Like you couldn't. I don't think you could have made that on Nintendo. I don't think it would have looked as good.
If they added the extra special chips, like those MMC3 chips.
Right. But that was a good game.
But that was.
It had like a lot of detail into it.
It just didn't look like it had that tiley background that those Nintendo games did. It was more of a hand-drawn type of thing that made it look a little bit more like Super Nintendo.
You're right.
Contra Rogue Corps. This is one I'm kind of excited about. 9/24, so September 24th, that comes out, and that looks like it kind of reminds me of. Do you remember the game One for PlayStation 1?
Yeah, with the barcode on the front of it.
Yeah,
that was like part of the logo.
Yeah, I think so. But it's like basically just like a run and gun game. A lot of explosions happening, but it's 3-dimensional where you can kind of move in and out. There's a it almost looks like it could be like a twin stick shooter today.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of looks like, and I mean, it looks pretty boss. I mean, I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, doesn't it kind of look like the one they put on PS1, the Contra?
Legacy of War.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, I'm sure it plays better. But,
well, yeah, that's what it reminded me of that. Right, it's kind of like a top-down kind of.
Yeah.
Not complete top-down. I don't know what view that's called.
Same
isometric kind of.
Well, like a 3/4 vertical almost. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
It's not like at eye level. It's elevated a little bit, so you're looking sort of down on the characters as they're moving through. But I wonder if that's going to be a twin stick shooter, or if that's going to be something else. I would think it would be. You know, or they could do like the old Super Nintendo style with like Smash TV, where the left D-pad actually moves the guy when the 4 buttons on the face.
Yeah, as where you shoot.
Because I mean, whether you're doing Xbox or Nintendo or PlayStation, they all have the 4 buttons. But a twin stick might be better because it'll be a little bit more
fluid, fluid.
The one for me that's kind of a big deal. You texted me, and you said, "Oh my gosh, did you see that they came out with this game?"
I know what it is,
and I was like, "No," but see, you said it was the
I know.
third game.
I spoke too
almost
soon.
lost my mind when you said that, but it's Panzer Dragoon. They're kind of remaking or remastering Panzer Dragoon.
Welcome to the 90s.
Did you see the trailer though? I mean, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, we're getting to a point in like modern gaming, which is not the focus of our podcast, but we're getting to a point where whether you're playing on Switch or you're playing on PlayStation or Xbox, it's not really, to me, it's not really about the power anymore. It's more about how artistic you can be with the resources that you have to get the kind of results that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look in that trailer, you know, all of the vegetation in that, I think, if I can remember correctly, it's like moving around and wafting with the wind, and you know, just the water effects look really, really good. I'm really excited about that. And that was, you know, being a guy who really likes the Sega Saturn, which was a console that was, nobody played it. I think they sold maybe 2 million units in the United States. You know, I mean, we're talking about like TurboGrafx territory. In a way, you know, it's like maybe double what TurboGrafx did.
The Saturn?
In America, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and it sold really well in Japan, but not in the States, which is one of the reasons why the games are so freaking expensive.
I believe it.
But that's one game where if you guys own a Switch, I don't know if is it coming out on PS4? Do you know? I
don't know. I thought it was only mentioned on the Switch.
Well, if you own a Switch, that's one that I would look out for, just because it's not a game that you're gonna play forever, but the experience, the music. I mean, I can't talk enough about the orchestration that they did in that game.
I don't know why it would be exclusive to the Switch unless they paid for it and they...
Maybe.
Yeah. Or it could be one of those where it comes out on the Switch, they have exclusivity to the first release, and then like 6 months later...
Look at a game like Cuphead, right? Cuphead was supposed to be an Xbox exclusive, and now it's coming out or coming out for Switch.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a shooter. It's got like a hand-drawn, almost looks like Mickey Mouse from the 30s.
Oh yeah,
type of game.
I heard about it.
And then for all you Final Fantasy heads, Final Fantasy VII has a date of March 20th. So,
Who cares?
Get your. Oh, come on now.
I don't like Final Fantasy.
You don't like anything that's got substance,
right? That's why I have nothing.
You like quick games. And that's cool.
The only thing I saw at E3 that I don't know why it was there because they didn't say anything about it was Hyperkin. I didn't see anyone really mention it. Hyperkin's making an N64 clone system. Did you see that?
I thought it was fake, to be honest with you.
No, it's legit.
Is that real?
Yeah, I just saw it today. And the guy was trying to ask him like questions about it. Oh, so is this going to be is it going to be emulation or is it going to play from the system? He's like, we don't know yet. So are there going to be any colors? It's too early to tell. Any question that the guy asked, he just said, it's too early in development to let you know. I was like, well, what's the point of even showing it then if you have you can't tell us anything about it? Like, I would like to know if it has an expansion pack thing. If it had an expansion pack built in already, so you wouldn't have to worry about that.
You would think it would be.
It does. They showed like the shell of it, so it's got the 4 controller ports.
If it's Hyperkin, my guess is that it's going to be
no,
emulation.
I know.
Which is, I mean, it's whatever. It's not terrible.
But I mean, they also did release that. They also did release a HDMI cable for the 64, and I was like, ooh, I might grab this. And I looked online, and everyone said it's terrible. There's one.
Is it the Pound?
There's one person.
Is it the Pound brand?
No, a Hyperkin.
Hyperkin brand.
Yeah, and it looks it like washes out all the colors, like the reds.
But it
look
can't
pink.
It can't access the RGB image because it's
allegedly it's supposed to just be just so you
easy
can,
solution.
Yeah,
so you can play it on your HD TV.
But I mean, if you're gonna put it out, you might as well not have it do that. Like the quality looked really bad in like the videos I saw. So that's unfortunate.
Starting off good.
I know, right?
I don't know, man. I don't know. The whole if Hyperkin's gonna make a console and they want mass adoption, you can't make it cost too much money. If they're gonna use real parts like the Analog NT or the Mega SG or whatever, the one that uses real parts of the Genesis or real parts of the Nintendo.
Oh, the one that everyone was going nuts about.
That's like a $400 system. Or a $300 system. You're not going to be able to sell that. You kind of have to use emulation if you want mass adoption.
Yeah, because I'm sure that'll be. I'm guessing it would be like $100 when it comes out.
I mean, that's not a bad price point if it's.
I mean, the Retron 5 was $150, so I would assume this one would be under that.
It's funny,
and it has all the original controller ports on it too, so you can use your old controllers.
Yeah, I mean that's the generation of people that played those systems. There's a reason why the one that came out for Super Nintendo and Genesis came out when it did, and why the 64 might be coming out now. It's because the people who played that system as young kids are getting jobs now.
Yeah. Well, I also think it had something to do with the patent on the Nintendo 64 too.
I mean, that could be.
They had to wait for that to expire. I think it was like 20 years or something like that.
Okay. I mean, that would be 2016.
Yeah, but I mean, not like they're just gonna pop it out right then.
No, I know. But that makes sense, and it would be a good time to get that.
Yeah.
Get that released. So
that's the one I want the most. The
64 one.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite system?
Probably. I think so. The one I had the most fun with growing up. Yeah. Because it was the right age to have that system.
It's funny because the PlayStation sold like 100 million copies of the hardware. But how often do you hear people talk about 64 has like a fever?
It's just that Nintendo
in this country.
It's just Nintendo, man.
But the Wii doesn't have that kind of fervor. The GameCube to an extent, but I think it's because Nintendo got the jump on the 4-player thing. Like they built the system with 4 controller ports, and they made it so easy for people to access that. And think about all the party games you got. Even games that weren't party games, like GoldenEye, turned into party games because you would just do deathmatch.
And Beetle Adventure Racing.
Did you play that?
Oh yeah, I had it. But that's for another podcast. We'll just end up talking about Nintendo 64 for an hour.
We probably shouldn't do that. Any pickups? Anything you've done since the Beavis and Butthead podcast?
What did I? Oh, I did pick up. I got Off-Road on the Genesis, but I don't know if I mentioned that before. But I got it in the box. I did.
Yeah.
What else did I got? Well, I got Sonic Spinball only because it was in the box for $4.
Not really noteworthy.
You asked me, that's what I got. Oh, I did. I got Yoshi's Story on Nintendo 64.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, $15.
Underrated game.
Can't complain.
Underrated game. That's I think in Liz's like top 5.
Oh, top 5 Dead or Alive.
Top 5, baby. The Fave 5 on T-Mobile.
I would ask you what you picked up, but we'd have to do a whole nother episode. So how about you just mention 2 games you got? The one of them might be behind us.
Yeah.
Or probably all behind us.
I'm gonna keep it Sega CD for now. Well, I'll mention 3 games. So I got Winning Post on Sega Saturn, which is becoming such a rare game. You can barely find it in the box anymore.
Oh, I meant to ask. Did you try playing it?
It works.
It does work?
It works.
Nice.
It works. And it's a game that's going for upwards of like 200 plus now in the box, when last year it was only going for 80.
All it takes is one person to list it at some ridiculous price, and once it sells for that, then that's what everyone
But there are
bases.
no copies online.
No, I know, but that's I
Well,
think
who the hell's playing a horse racing game in the United States?
they're not. It's just like you. You're trying to get the whole collection.
No, but what I'm saying is that why was it released in the first place?
Oh.
If you look at
Well, it came out. That was the one that came on the arcades, right? Is that the same one, or is that a different
remember when
one?
we used to go to Dave and Buster's?
No, not Dave and Buster's.
Remember
The arcade in the mall. And the Buckland Mall had it with the 4 horses lined up.
Oh, I just remember when we used to go to.
Or did they have it at Dave and Buster's?
When we went to Dave and Buster's in the Providence Mall, they used to have that side area before you got into like the main arcade area that had the horse racing stuff on the wall. There was like those screens. It had its own. It was almost like a betting area, if you remember. It was like a betting booth, and it had just like booth seats where you could sit. No, not booth seats, like bar top seats where you could sit down.
Like the off-track betting.
And you could almost like bet on the horses, but you could actually like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's off-track betting, OTB.
Yeah, but it was using this Winning Post horse racing game
or
whatever the arcade equivalent was.
You would bet on the video game.
You would bet on the video game. Yeah,
allegedly.
It was like 3-dimensional. You know, it was a little bit more advanced. This is a 2D like sprite-based game, but.
So what else?
And then behind us, so we've got the 2 noteworthy ones would be Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure, and Shining Force CD, which I've vowed since I got the Sega CD cartridge to get. Which the Sega CD cartridge I got had a Shining Force CD save file on it, if you remember.
Right.
And so I was like, I got to get Shining Force CD. So I went down to the Grid Games in Manchester here off of Purnell Street. And Carl had it, and so we struck a deal.
It wasn't Carl Winslow, was it?
Nope.
Oh,
nope. It's
the
Grid Games on Instagram. Follow them. They've got actually a really really good selection, like really good stuff.
Real nice.
That you're not going to see at any other retro game store, for whatever reason. But it's pretty cool. They also do like, I find a lot of game stores are now doing like the Magic tournaments, and that's a way for them to kind of maintain.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
But, kind of, because there might be like a big, I don't know what you call them, like the Magic packs that come out, and people want the whole series, and it's like, they're expensive. It's like, so anywhere between $125 and $250 for like a set. So they can make money on that, and then plus I think they make money on like the tournaments that they do.
Yeah, you got to like pay to do the tournament, probably. Yeah.
But it allows. It
just gets people in the door.
Exactly. It allows video games and other stuff to exist together because. Mm-hmm. It'd be tough for them to kind of survive probably without that, And then, and Pitfall. So I played some Pitfall. Man, is that an awesome game! Like you weren't kidding.
But I still haven't played it.
You haven't played Pitfall?
No.
Oh God, man! It's the best of like what Aladdin is on Sega Genesis.
I understand.
And games like Toy Story, it ushered in that whole. I'm going to talk about Pitfall again, but. Anyway, so those were a few of the noteworthy games that I got. So I've actually been playing Pitfall. Again, it just invokes a lot of feelings of Aladdin, just that hand-drawn animation. It's sort of like a next level of what the 16-bit consoles could do. And, pretty much that. I'm playing a little bit of Rebel Strike on GameCube, which I know is not really considered classic, but going back to Rogue Squadron, those games just control so well. They're just really fun games. It's a classic like Nintendo, plug it in, you're gonna have a good time no matter what kind of game. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
It's just a little bit of that. And now
The main event.
we can get into some Toy Story here. So I just saw Toy Story 4. I think you just saw Toy Story 4. I also
saw Toy Story 4. Can I do one little quick rant about Toy Story 4?
Does it have to do with Buzz Lightyear?
Nope.
Okay. Well,
it has to do with the legend, Don Rickles.
I would love to hear it.
I was looking up how they were doing the voice for Mr. Potato Head.
They took him from another.
I understand that. No, let me say. So the crew, they said, I read an article where they said they went through like hours and hours and documented every like piece of audio he's ever said in like on any show or anything. And these motherfuckers, he said 3 words.
He had one line.
He said 3 words.
Did he say like "watch it, you idiot" or something like that?
That's it.
But didn't he say that in the first movie?
He said 3 words. They had me all hype because Don Rickles is the man. Was the man, I should say. R.I.P.
Posthumously.
Oh my god, I was so pissed. They were like, "Oh yeah, we dug up all this footage." They said they spent like hours and days like gathering all his audio from interviews, just TV shows, appearances from the past stuff. He said 3 fucking words. That was it.
To be fair, the movie's not about him. But look at what they did to all those characters.
But I'm just saying.
They put all the characters in a box.
Don't put me in a box.
My thing about Toy Story 4, which I think it was a good movie. I'm not going to give away the ending or spoilers or whatever, but it was a good enough movie. But you're talking about Toy Story, it's got to be a 10, and it wasn't. Why did they make Why did they make Buzz Lightyear into a bumbling idiot? He was like dumber than he was in the first movie.
Yeah.
He's listening to his buttons.
Yeah, his inner voice
is to tell him what to do.
Yeah, whatever.
He had no personality. He was like he was,
You've got no personality. Well, anyway,
hush up.
I was just upset that they had me.
I know, he's your man.
They like hyped it up to like, oh yeah, we got all this audio, so I figured he'd have some funny lines in it, and he said 3 words.
You know, he's too racy. It's Don Rickles.
3 words, and they said they spent hours and days of going through audio and footage.
Did she have any words though? Did she have any lines?
Mrs. Potato Head? Yeah. Well, who cares about her?
I'm just saying, did she even have any lines?
I don't think so. She probably made like a noise.
You know who didn't have any lines? Bullseye.
Oof.
Bullseye didn't have any lines.
All right. Well, anyway, let's talk about the game.
So, we talked about Toy Story 4. Let's talk about Toy Story 1, the movie, because that's what this game is about.
The genesis of Toy Story.
Ooh, a little play on words. What are your memories of Toy Story 1 in 1995? Did you see it in the theater?
You know what's weird is I don't think I knew about it, but they showed it at our school.
Really?
Like the OG style. They put like everyone into the library, and they brought out the cart with the TV on top.
With the projector? Or?
No, just a big TV, like a 30-inch tube
with the
TV.
Auditorium of like
no,
people
it was
there?
It was in the library. I think it was like they put like a couple classes together, and we watched the movie. And I don't even think it was like after it came out. I don't know if like the school like they gave out like advanced copies or something like that. But we watched it in school, and it was amazing.
Back in like
when it came out,
5th grade, 6th grade,
6th grade. We watched it in middle school.
Huh?
I don't know why. Like I don't know what was the benefit of it. It wasn't like a teacher
educational.
It wasn't like a teacher was out and we just had a substitute and they were like, all right, we're just gonna watch a movie today.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
it was mind blowing.
To be fair, it was a phenomenon.
No, I know. That was like you could have put that. I mean, they're pretty much the same style, but you could have put that movie out today and you'd still be like the same.
Yes.
Still follows the same. Like it hasn't. I mean,
it's not Beavis and Butthead.
The picture quality has gotten a little bit better, but it's still the same art style and everything.
Pretty much. But I think what drove that movie, see, that style is great, but there are plenty of CG animated films.
Oh, no, I know. Well, they were
that are complete dog shit.
They the OGs, the originators of it.
Because they had a compelling story.
Well, I know. Obviously, there's a good story to it. I know.
but the thing, when you're a kid, you're not thinking of that. You're just saying this movie's amazing.
Yeah.
You're not really thinking why. I remember and I didn't see that movie in the theater. I can't tell you where I first saw it, but I just remember when I did first see it, thinking, cartoons are dead.
It's over.
This is the new way forward, and anything that comes out that has a CG animated look is going to be amazing. I'm very wrong about that.
Well, yeah.
Very wrong about that. But that was the impact of that movie. And I know just looking at commentary from like the Toy Story commentary of that actual movie and the guys who worked on, let's say, like 2 and 3 and A Bug's Life and Nemo and all this stuff, that they were inspired by that first movie. Let's say they weren't working for Pixar at that time, but they were like, I need to do this. It just inspired all these people to get into computer animation. And who knows if that movie didn't come out when it did with the impact that it had, because we've gotten so many other studios now. You think of like Universal, what are the Columbia Pictures? I don't know what other ones there are. DreamWorks, where everybody's producing now their own animated films, and that who knows
that style.
Who knows how, like, if that would have happened if Toy Story had flopped. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't have been a big deal until another one came out that was
if Toy Story didn't have a good story, so this Toy Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if the plot and everything didn't kind of mean anything, then it probably just would have been whatever, and everybody would have forgotten about it. I'm sure someone would have taken the same premise and then came up with their own. What was the one? Small Soldiers. Remember that came
movie's
out?
Scary.
It's good though.
It's
really good.
But that's sort of a mixture of what looks to be stop motion animation and
I
live
think
action.
it is. But I mean, obviously, it came out after Toy Story.
What's funny is that I always thought that the Small Soldiers were good. I thought they were good characters because they're on the front cover of the movie.
Yeah.
So you think that? I mean, I always thought that they were good, but I only saw that movie 5 years ago.
Yeah, I just saw it like a couple years ago.
And I was like, seriously? But no, that's another good one, but that's not quite CG.
Yeah.
All right, so the topic of today is Toy Story, the game. We thought it was really timely with the movie coming out, and I don't know if you have any history with this game growing up, but I certainly do.
Oh, yeah.
Which we can get into, but I want to go into a little bit of the specifics about the game, and then we can talk about kind of why it's important in gaming and some of our own memories about it. So the game was released in November of 1995 on the Genesis, and about December, the records are not great on it. Can't trust Wikipedia, so you got to go to old posts to find them, and even then it was a little iffy. But around the end of the year, at the very latest, maybe January of 1996 for Super Nintendo, it was created by Traveler's Tales. And Traveler's Tales, if you've seen that name or heard that name, these guys were all about pushing the boundaries of what could be accomplished with, at that time, 16-bit technology. So one of their very first games, do you remember Bram Stoker's Dracula on Sega CD?
Oh, jeez.
With the guy walking down and punching the bats?
Oh, there's two of them. Oh, no, what was the other one I'm thinking of? Dracula Unleashed? Is that another Dracula one by Sony?
It might be, but I'm thinking of, like, it's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, where it looks he's just the movement is terrible.
It's like digitized.
Yeah,
and he's just walking through and
they did that.
Bats.
They did that one too.
So they did that one.
You gotta start somewhere.
And then they did Pugsy. Do you remember Pugsy?
Oh yeah, I never played it, but I know of it.
Yeah, so Pugsy was like a side-scrolling platformer. He's like this. He looks like a raindrop.
He's like a blob.
I don't even know what he is, but
he's a raindrop.
But that game showcased a lot of the special effects that the Sega CD could do. So it did rotation and it did scaling of things, scaling of bosses, scaling of different images on the screen. And it was a place where I think it got a lot of their more testing ground on the Genesis itself. They did Mickey Mania, which we all know about. Well, some of us know about the advancements that were there. There was almost three-dimensional images in that game, just the way that they developed. I mean, just these guys were able to tap so much out of if you can throw up some image of Mickey Mania and post on this, because it'd be cool for people to see, especially like there's a scene in the very first level where it's black and white, and slowly as they go through the level, it turns into color, and it looks.
Oh yeah,
it looks,
I remember that
looks
level.
just like a cartoon from the
Like
30s.
the 30s cartoon.
And it's Steamboat Willie, which is
that's what I was gonna say. Steamboat.
one of the first Mickey cartoons, if not the first. And there's a part where Mickey's going through, and he's got to get over this. I don't even know what. Almost like it's like a bridge, but it's like a swiveling arm, and it's wooden. And the way it rotates around, it literally looks like it's jutting into the screen, going to the other side. It's almost like a platform that's rotating across.
Oh, kind of like something from like Batman and Robin on Genesis.
Yes. Yeah. Like, that's a whole nother.
Well,
episode.
I know, but I'm trying to think of that.
But yeah, just these very interesting 3D levels. There's a rotating tower level where Mickey's running around this tower going down, and this 3-dimensional tower is rotate or shifting as it's going on. Mm-hmm. And there's these what looks to be 3-dimensional wooden platforms that are dropping out from under him. Just some really, really good effects, really good music in that game. They did Toy Story. They did Sonic 3D Blast, which, say what you want about Sonic 3D Blast, whether you like it or not, but a 3D sort of isometric game was originally made on the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
So, again, really, really impressive. I see.
It's like the Marble Madness
kind of look.
Sonic, yeah.
But you know what that game reminds me of? Flicky.
Oh, Flicky.
Flicky is the game about the bird. It's a Genesis game, and it's got to pick up its chicks and get to the door before the cats get them.
Oh.
And the levels are just constantly if you go off the screen, it goes to the left side of the screen, so it's like a looping level.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I gotcha.
It's basically you're trying to get the birds and get them home before the cats get you, and that's kind of what Sonic 3D Blast is. You're trying to get the different birds or animals, and you got to get up like 5 or 6 of them and get to the ring to pass the level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They did Sonic R for Sega Saturn, which is more noteworthy for its music than anything else. But even that game had one of the issues with 32-bit technology was where things would pop into the screen.
Oh yeah.
And I can remember with Sonic R, one of the things that they did was when you were running through that level, and we all know Sonic R's controls are difficult to get into, or if you want to be really harsh, just say they're terrible.
Right.
But the level, when new things would come into the screen, they wouldn't just pop in, but they would kind of transparently kind of like come in and then become solid. So it didn't look like they were just popping into the screen. It was more of a gradual push into the screen, so it didn't look so jarring. So they were always kind of like experimenting with the technology to see how they could make it work even better. And some of their best work is in the 16-bit arena, especially on the Genesis, because they really didn't do a whole lot with the Super Nintendo. It was mostly Genesis or Mega Drive production in Europe. And Traveler's Tales has gone on to their most famous thing now is the Lego games. They do all the Lego games. Ever since the Lego Star Wars original game. Remember you were talking to me like years ago about your cousin who, I don't know if it was in Pennsylvania, you were talking about how the kid was nuts about Lego Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
And like
I forgot about that.
Cleared everything about the game and was just like insane.
Yeah, the Lego game for everything.
Ever since then now, they do all those games. So I mean, think about how profitable they've become since that time.
Yeah, they're good though.
They are good. They are good.
Like Lego Batman's pretty good. I mean, the Lego City Undercover game was really good on the Wii U.
I've tried to get into that with my little guy, and I have to play it alone because he's got the attention span like you. I mean, play it for 5 minutes. Like, Daddy, let's do something else. I was trying to get him into. I plugged in Lego Star Wars 2, the one that's like the old trilogy, like the original trilogy.
It was on 360.
GameCube.
Oh, okay.
And we were playing it on the Wii, and we got. It was fine up until we got to this point where we had to use like this grappling hook to get up to a second level.
That's like on all the games. Yeah. It's so confusing sometimes.
But we get up to the platform, and he just immediately falls off the platform down to the bottom.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, all right, you got to go over here, get back to there, and press the button so you can go back up. Gets back up, immediately falls again. And I just feel so bad for him.
Then he rage quits.
He's just like, Daddy, I want to go do something else. I feel bad. I wanted to enjoy it, but at the same time, it's like you got to.
He'll get there.
Yeah. So that's why I secretly bought him 3DS and Kirby, but no one needs to know about that just yet. So the game was published by Disney Interactive. It was one of the first games by Disney Interactive to be published. They started publishing in about 94, 95. The first game that they published was Mickey's Ultimate Challenge on Super Nintendo, which is...
What the hell is that? Is it a
of,
sports thing?
No,
you gotta do
it's more like
mini
game challenges to kind of get...
Sounds amazing.
It's not Castle of Illusion. But anyways, that was the first game that they did, and Toy Story was one of the first. They did a lot of work, like I said, with Sony, Sega, Sony ImageSoft, Capcom, Virgin Interactive. Originally, Disney did, and then they just said, we're going to start to publish ourselves.
Said, F it.
Instead of giving all these companies profits, we're going to go into business for ourselves and be the publisher and just get...
we're going to own everything.
Get other developers to do it.
We want the publishing.
Right. I mean, they published all their own movies. Why couldn't they?
Yeah.
Why couldn't they do video games? The thing about Toy Story, if we talk about the game itself, that is really, really significant, and what Traveler's Tales did in this game, that you have to applaud, whether you like the game or not, is it brought together...
Well, you can't not like the game.
There are people that don't like this game.
We don't associate with those people.
Well, listen, before you play the game, which you haven't played in so long... You let's just get through this, because you might play it again and you might not like it. Maybe not.
I doubt it.
But whether you like it or not, this game brought in 3-dimensional racing, first-person exploring, real first-person exploring. I'm not talking about like something that looks like first-person, but there's like panes that you're going through. This is fluid movement into an environment like Doom.
Or Noah's Ark 3D.
RC car racing, think like Micro Machines. Platforming, first and foremost, and shooter style level.
They literally did it all.
All of these genres were represented in this game. So, at the very least, you need to give them credit for trying all different types of things to make it what it was. And when you think about...
And the thing is, if it was bad, then... If the game itself, the gameplay and everything was bad, then people would have been like, oh, they tried to do too many things, and it didn't make sense. They should have just stuck to one form of the game, like a side-scrolling part, and then just
that was
did
some
that.
of the criticism back in 1995 when this game came out.
I know. I do remember that.
They said the graphics were good, the music was good, but the gameplay was boring. That was the comments on, if you look at EGM or you look at GamePro, both of the magazines... Like in EGM, they gave it an 8, a 6.5, a 6.5, and a 6.5. And then in GamePro, gameplay and fun factor, graphics were like a 5.
With the like frown face.
No, it was the electric face. But then
because they did it 1 to 5.
Yeah,
right?
but then like fun factor and gameplay were like 2.5s, and it was the guy looking like he had to fart or something like that. He looked unenthused. And it was the same complaint. It was like the gameplay. Like, I don't like the pull string animation, or I don't like the pull string how it works. Honestly, if this game came out in 1993, I think opinions would have been different. Do you know why I think that's the case?
In 93 as opposed to 95?
Yeah, late 95, early 96.
Are you thinking did some other game come out in between then that was similar? Is that what you're saying that?
Well, there was one. And you're talking about Donkey Kong Country, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh.
I'm talking about the 32-bit generation had gotten kicked off.
Oh, yeah, 95.
So at that point, like 3D gaming was sort of in vogue, and 2D gaming was something that you kind of were like, we'll leave it to the kids, but it's kind of discounted. And this is my theory. I'm not saying this is what
we can already get the legit 3D on the system.
Yeah, like we can get 3D, so why are we doing this 3D rendering thing? We're just kind of like trying to trick ourselves.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, which I don't agree with. I'm just saying that it was a
You're
time...
playing devil's advocate here.
You could play Warhawk on PlayStation 1.
Oof. Wow.
And Mortal Kombat 3 with like larger sprites. Battle Arena Toshinden. Like these 3D fighters and...
No, I understand.
So, like, when you've played that as a reviewer, and then you get Toy Story in the mail to review, I can understand them saying, like, you know, not really enthused about it. So I think that part of it was a victim of its time of when it came out.
Then they're not being credible. Then, you know,
tell them why you mad.
It's true. I mean, you can't judge something based off of something it can't do.
No, you gotta judge it based off of. But were they thinking?
No,
Listen, this is the environment we're in. I don't care if it's 16-bit. Like, why am I gonna play it?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, they wrong. They wrong.
So that was kind of the reviews of the game, and the cool thing about this moment in the 16-bit generation, as late as it was, is when you look at a game like Toy Story, or you look at a game like Vector Man, these games are doing things that in 1990 they couldn't dream of doing. They were taking real animators and 3D rendering. They were using these workstations to create 3D models and then turning them into 2D sprites. And the effect, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I still think to this day it looks really, really impressive.
Oh yeah, this game?
The look of,
or
like,
just you're saying
when they would take
the idea
like
in
think
general.
about Donkey Kong Country. They made the Donkey Kong characters on a workstation, like a Silicon Graphics workstation, and then they turn them into 2D sprites.
Oh yeah, that game still looks amazing.
Donkey Kong Country is a legendary game. I don't care what anybody's opinion is. That game is amazing.
Yeah.
There it goes, the first one.
Ding.
Do you remember like the first time you saw Donkey Kong Country?
Oh yeah, I do.
It was in '94.
Yeah, that's the first one came out. Yeah, they had it at Walmart, like on one of their like the Super Nintendo little stations where you could play.
Oh yeah, where you were looking like way to the sky. You're like this. Remember Walmart?
Oh
had those,
no, that
had
was
those like
no.
things,
This was the one.
controller was down here, and the TV was in the ceiling.
Oh no, this
above the
no,
cabinet that held the games.
This is the one where they had like the controllers. They had two controllers out, and they were on this like little black, like plastic thing. They were kind of really stiff, so you could barely move the controller.
Oh, it had like the ribbing.
Yeah, and they had the TV right in front of you, and it was one of those it was like a really crisp CRT flat.
Oh, nice
monitor on it, and
nice.
then you could see the Super Nintendo in there with the game in it. Because they would have like
probably like a Sony
Trinitron
or something.
Yeah, they had like Star Fox in there.
Oof.
Before, and I remember playing Donkey Kong. It was either Walmart or or Sears, because they had this set up at Sears too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the way to sell games back then.
I miss that. I miss going into like Funkoland, and if you remember when you walk in, they had like the 3 TVs on the left.
Yeah.
That had the games in them, and
then you could just ask them to put
any game in and just play. And then they had like game stations in the other parts of the store, like in like
they had
like in the
more.
middle of the store, and then the end of the store there were. I mean, it was like there were like 7 systems running at any one time. You know.
Yeah, it was a good way to, like, if you were interested in getting a used game and you wanted to test it out, make sure you liked it.
I mean, think about how many times when we were kids and you bought a game just based on what the game looked like on the back. Yeah. You know, it was like buyer beware. You know?
Yeah, I remember going in there because I wanted a new wrestling game, and there was a one called Natsume Championship Wrestling because I thought it looked pretty good.
Oh no!
And luckily,
no Fire Pro.
Luckily, I went in there and tested it. The game was terrible.
Funkoland?
It was so bad. And I don't know if that was the same day because I ended up getting Final Fight, but I already knew I wanted that game. I don't know if that was the same day or not, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a new wrestling game. I'm playing the other ones forever, like WWF Raw or Royal Rumble, and that game was awful, so bad.
Good times. Good times.
Buyer beware.
There's just a feeling like that memory of going into a Funkoland and the possibilities being endless.
Where do you think you are, Funkoland?
And you would take that little newspaper home that had all the games on it, and you would just
highlight. I'd highlight all the games I wanted.
You would just agonize over it. Yeah, I would take a pen and I would circle the games that I was interested in, or I'd like my top 10, and it was like, okay, what do I want to get first? And okay, Super Mario Brothers is 25 cents.
Yeah.
You remember that when they were unloading them for like a quarter?
That's how I got Final Fight for $12.
It's a good
deal. It was $11.99 then.
I wonder what it goes for today.
Yeah, then you had to go to the back of the store, and that's where they had all the trade-in values on like the fluorescent paper.
Oh.
on the back.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, you have to go in the back corner to do your trade-ins and everything?
Yes. There was like a booth.
Yeah. It's like shady shit's going down.
So they had, remember the, was it the GX TV or what? Remember that TV that they came out with in like 1997? It had like the speakers, like it opened up. It was called like the
portable one?
No, it was like a special gaming TV.
Yes, I do remember. It looked like a computer monitor.
I think it was called the GX TV or something like that.
Yeah, it had the doors that swung open and they were speakers.
And it had the speakers.
I think it looked like a computer monitor.
Kind of.
It probably was a computer
it was all
monitor.
Black. Remember, it was all black.
I thought they made different colors. I think there was a white and a black one.
Oh, I don't know.
But yeah, could be. But I do remember that.
But I remember, so this was probably 1998, probably 1998, because it was before the Dreamcast had come out, and my Saturn died. The laser on the Model 1s. Everybody says the Model 1s are more durable. I think it's a bunch of shit, because I've owned 2 Model 1s in my life, and both of the motors have burned out. So I don't know what that's about, but being a kid and not having limited resources, I said that's probably a good idea. Let me just go bring it down to Funkoland and see if they'll take it. Like, not really thinking they're gonna
check everything.
They're gonna test it, And he tested it on that monitor. What is it called?
Yeah, it is a GX TV.
GX TV.
It literally it looks like all it was just a 13-inch TV with some fold-out speakers.
Yeah, I don't know what the appeal was with that.
It just looked cool. It was the 90s.
Who made it?
Samsung
GX TV.
Yeah.
Maybe the speakers were extra special. They made the sound better.
It was the Aura interactor of TVs.
Oh, oof.
Where it was supposed to be amazing. It looks literally just a 13-inch CRT with fold-out speakers on it.
I saw one of the Aura interactors at Goodwill maybe a month ago, but it was I thought they only made them for the Genesis and Super Nintendo, but it was for the 64 or the PlayStation 1.
I don't know.
Yeah, it had like a special extra box attached to it. The GX TV, a television for gamers from 1997. Anyways, so he was testing it on this GX TV, and I can just remember it would get to like.
He's like, "Yeah, your shit's broke, man."
No, he was like he was like talking to some other guy and just acting all casual, and it got to that screen where it's got the bubbles, and he would go to load up the game, and in the top left corner, the top left bubble turns into like essentially the planet Saturn when the game is like spun up and loaded, and that would never work. And I just remember him being like, I've tried it a few times, it's not working, I can't take your system back. And
you're beat.
I just remember being so like dejected and embarrassed by it, but it was my own fault. I mean, I brought a broke system to Funkoland to try to get rid of it, and the rest is history.
Trying to cheat the system.
Yeah, it was wrong of me, so I got what I deserved.
You played yourself.
But then I bought another one. I bought a used one there for like $50, and that one died on me. So
good job, Sega.
I've owned 2 Model 2s, and I've never had an issue with them. The other thing about Toy Story, getting back to Toy Story, is this is the time when there was more money flowing into video games than ever before. When you think about the early 90s and you think about the mid-90s, video games really kind of exploded during that time frame. And part of it, too, was the 16-bit wars. I think the 16-bit wars really fueled...
Just like the Monday Night Wars.
Energy. Think about when wrestling was the biggest.
It's the same thing.
97, 98, 99, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 16-bit wars, 1990.
It was. I mean, it started a little bit earlier than for the video games.
92, 93, 94.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much all through the 90s.
But it really pushed these game companies to think more innovative, think bigger in terms of the production of these games. Toy Story. Let me think about it. Toy Story had over 50 people working on the game. When you think about games,
you got Disney backing it,
But when you think about games from the 8 or early 16-bit era, there was sometimes 5 or 8 people working on it. There was one programmer, one graphic artist, one person doing sound, one producer. So they were the budgets of these games were not big, but by the time you got to the end of that generation, and even the middle of that generation, look at the first big game that had way more involvement from a big studio is from the same place, and that's Aladdin. Aladdin for the Sega Genesis, they got Disney animators to come in and meticulously create, what's his name? Aladdin. Shit.
What's Aladdin's name? Aladdin.
Damn it. Where are my keys? They're in your hand, idiot. They meticulously made Aladdin's movements and animation, and it looked so realistic. You know, they put the time and the effort in, and they were able to match that up, obviously, with the responsiveness and the controls, but they made it look more real. They made the game look more than just what you found in the early 90s 16-bit games. And then by the time you get to Toy Story, at that point Donkey Kong Country's already come out, so you've got high quality animation, you've got 3D rendering happening in these games. The production was bolstered by that 16-bit war, and the fact that video games were becoming just a bigger business. And so it was an opportunity for them to do more in these games, and they proved that with games like Aladdin, games like Donkey Kong Country, Toy Story, Vector Man, which came out after that. Vector Man is a whole.
It wasn't a big hit, so to speak.
No, but
no, I know. In
terms of its graphical prowess,
yeah.
Aside from the fact that the game is phenomenal and a great platformer, each part of Vector Man's body is individually
the spheres
animated. He's got no body. It's just a bunch of spheres.
Got no body.
So
you could say the same for balls, right?
Yeah, but the difference is that Vector Man's actually a very, very good game. So the main guy involved with this game, and the one who pretty much started Traveler's Tales at the very, very beginning, is a guy named John Burton. And John actually has a YouTube channel. It's called Game Hut. And if you go on Game Hut, you can see all of his videos are all about the production of those early Genesis games, including Mickey Mania, Pugsy, and Toy Story. So you can see how he did all the different things he was able to accomplish in the game, because he was the lead programmer. How he actually accomplished the 3D levels in Toy Story, and in that exploration level. I'm telling you guys, you got to go check out Game Hut. If you're interested, if you're into anything technological and you want to know how these games were made, and you should, because this is a part of our history, check it out, because it's really enlightening in how he was able to do it and really push systems like the Genesis and the Super Nintendo beyond what they originally were thought imaginable, capable of. The Toy Story actually uses 148 colors on screen at any one time and for a Genesis game. But do you know what the maximum number of colors a Genesis can use?
I don't.
What's your favorite system?
Is it? Wait,
what's your favorite system?
Was it only 64?
64 colors.
Oh.
But he talks about on his channel how if you selected certain palettes from the Genesis architecture, you can do shading of values,
different levels,
of values
of the
lower
color.
and higher. And if you do that, you can create actually more colors. And that's the way he was able to do 148 colors from 300 or 3,300 different shades that he could do. The floor, if you look at the floor in the very first level,
the wood grain,
all he did was this skewing technique, and the wood floor is as wide as the television screen, and it keeps rotating, but you don't see that because by the time the last piece of wood is off the screen, the new segment is back on. So all it looks like is a scrolling floor that's constantly rotating. If that makes if that makes any sense. So he was able to, really, tap the Genesis for more than what it was originally thought it could do, and it's one of those things where you have to give credit where credit's due.
But what about the Super Nintendo, man? It's still a system. The Genesis was a whore. That's Terry Funk reviewing the Super Nintendo version.
Is that? Does Terry Funk really talk like that?
Yes, he does.
He sounds like Paul Bearer.
look, that's how he talks. I love the Super Nintendo. I don't know, Mick. I think you should do it.
Sweet.
But I mean, from memory, the Super Nintendo version looks, I think, the same. I don't think they didn't. If the Super Nintendo had more, was it 256 colors? The Super Nintendo, something like that.
It was a lot. I think it was 512, but it was a lot more. Either way, it was a lot more.
You figured they probably just did whatever they could and kind of cloned the game on the Super Nintendo.
So they ported it to Super Nintendo, and the problem with that is that so there's two things that the Genesis has over the Super Nintendo, and only two things.
Blast processing.
So it runs faster. So it's at 7.16 megahertz.
More faster.
Whereas the Super Nintendo runs at 2.5 megahertz, I believe.
Genesis does.
And you see a lot of games, if you compare the Genesis to the Super Nintendo versions, especially when the games were made on Genesis and then ported to Super Nintendo, it's not.
They move slow like mace.
It's not a fair comparison, but you see a lot of slowdown. A good case in point is the original John Madden Football on Super Nintendo, which runs horrendously slow, and that's because Electronic Arts had not really gotten.
But they also
the
look.
system.
The games look completely different, though.
They do not.
Oh wait,
They do not.
is that when they switched it later on, where the games look different?
When you say games look different, what do you mean?
Just the players and everything. They look like the Genesis one. They look digitized almost. Or is that later? The later
game's
ones.
a port, so it's digitized as well.
Yeah.
The characters are digitized, but so getting back to it, the Super Nintendo is extremely more colorful than the Genesis version.
It's gonna be real colorful.
Honestly, he says that he used 148 colors, but the whole Genesis game just looks brown.
It does look like there's like 6 colors. It's like blue and yellow.
It looks like a brown paper bag. That's what
it's like brown, blue, and yellow. But I mean, it still looks awesome.
No, because of the 3D animation.
Yeah.
And all, it just looks so fluid. They actually got Disney animators to do Woody's movements and Scud's movements from the Scud level where you're getting chased by Scud.
Scud.
And it just elevates the game and the feeling that you're getting. I think about gameplay is what it is, but you can really elevate a game to feeling a lot more enjoyable if the things around the gameplay are that much better or more precise or make you feel more engaged with the game or more immersed with the game. Think about a game like Splatterhouse or Splatterhouse 2. Splatterhouse 2 is very much, a rudimentary game. All Rick's doing is moving from left to right.
He's going from left to right, from left to right.
That is so perfect. It just makes you want to punch that, doesn't it? It's just crunchy.
Oh, I mean, it's hard.
I was listening to that at the office the other day.
You should be all the time.
It's pretty much on repeat. Where are we going with this?
Well, you were talking about Splatterhouse and how it's rudimentary.
But Splatterhouse is more than just the gameplay. Think about the music, the atmosphere of that game. That's what elevates that game. That's what makes it awesome. Same thing with...
Not amazing?
I'm trying to stay away from amazing. I've already got one under my belt.
You just gotta say it, man.
It's just amazing.
It's amazing.
It's the blink of an eye, you finally see the light. Damn it. Let me make my point. So, the Genesis has two things over the Super Nintendo. It's a faster processor. The 68,000 processor is faster. Number two is the resolution. So the Genesis can
It's bigger and blacker too.
Yes.
As Chris Rock would say.
It can do a resolution on screen of 320 pixels by 224 pixels.
Talk about HD.
Higher resolution. That's why it says on the Genesis.
Yes, the HD.
High resolution graphics. The Super Nintendo cannot do 320. It can do...
You can't do that on Nintendo. Does.
Let's not say what you made up. The Super Nintendo is 256 by 224. So there's about 65 pixels missing from the Super Nintendo. So what the problem is when, and this is, I say it's a leg up, but it's only a leg up when the Genesis games are ported to Super Nintendo. Because when really shitty porting happens, it's not the Super Nintendo's fault, but when really shitty porting happens, what they did with Toy Story and I'm not saying that Toy Story is better on Genesis. I'm just saying
Allegedly.
It's a detriment to the Super Nintendo game. What they did is they took the 320 pixels and they just cut off the outsides, and then they just took that image and stretched it out and put it on the television
like
screen.
it was a goddamn caramello.
So it looks like the image is magnified inside of the screen. Everything is either stretched horizontally, so the characters look fatter, and there's less that you can see side to side, so that when you're moving left to right, if there's an enemy placement that's really close, you're going to have a harder reaction time to be able to pick that up and react to it the right way so that you don't get hit. So, by and large, generally, the Toy Story game on Super Nintendo is thought of as the harder version than the Genesis version. It doesn't suffer from slowdown,
Really?
as far as I know. But that stretching out is one of the detriments.
I guess we'll find out.
But it's definitely more colorful.
It's going to be real colorful.
But I like that aspect of that's one of the reasons why I really like console gaming is that when you get later in a generation, it forces these companies, because you've got this huge install base, right? 30, 40, 50,000 or a million people that own the system. They're not going to just immediately run to the next system. You look at games like Vector Man came out in 95 and Vector Man 2 came out in 1996. These late era games, they had to tap everything they possibly could out of these systems.
Ass.
It's not like a PC where you can just say, well, get a better graphics card. No, this is the system that you're working in. This is what you have to work with. And it forces these programmers to think differently and push the boundaries and do things that originally were not thought that they could do. So that part of it I really, really appreciate from the standpoint of Traveler's Tales getting as much as they could out of it. And then in speaking about the hand-drawn animation, so Aladdin came out in late 93, Donkey Kong Country late 94, Earthworm Jim is another one, which I'm not a huge fan of Earthworm Jim, but there's a lot of, Earthworm Jim has kind of like a crazy retro following. There's a lot of people who love it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't... Graphically wise, it's nothing like crazy.
No, but the animation is step above what you...
And the sound, the sound and everything.
Think about like an early game like Last Battle or Shadow Blasters. These games, they essentially could be like Master System games. And then you get Earthworm Jim.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it always kind of started out back then, because, companies were just they weren't going full blast into the creation of the games back then. Because they were like, we were working on Nintendo and Master System games, and now we just got this new system.
Don't forget Atari 7800. Don't forget about the Atari 7800. Everybody was playing that.
3 people. I don't even think they sold 7,800 systems.
It was like
ironically,
it was like the Max to the Millions readathon. Like they had like this whole poll in the office. It was like, how high can we get? It was like a project graduation. Can we sell 7,800 systems?
Yeah.
They sold 72. The company went out of business.
Yeah.
Well, no, they created the Jaguar. Where did you learn to fly? and then another one was Pitfall, which is right behind us, and it really took advantage of these same techniques, the animation, and I mean that's about as much as I can say about it. There were also the other thing too is what was able to get all of this information into these cartridges is they started to develop compression techniques. So these games had, where you would need a cartridge size of, let's just say,
32 megabits.
Yeah, 16 megabits. Well, they only needed 4 megabits to get the same amount, so they could.
They always used to throw that on like the boxes. This is the 16 meg game.
Right. Well, especially with like.
We could barely fit it into the cartridge.
The Master System did that on a lot of their cartridge boxes. It was like they called it
help
2 mega power.
Yeah.
It was 2 megabits.
It was just them like help, buy it.
Yeah.
Help.
Exactly. Nobody was buying it. We're not buying your drivel.
The first 24 meg cart.
If you guys are interested in that kind of technical piece of it, like compression techniques and stuff, there's a guy on YouTube called Strafe Fox who goes into a lot of the compression techniques, the animation, and how they did it. I would recommend checking him out, her out. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, on YouTube, and learn a little bit more about that. We talked about the resolution. Super Nintendo does not have the racing level where Woody is on RC with Buzz at the end of the game, which you would think they've got Mode 7. Why don't they have it? So this is a first-person. This is a first-person racing level where you're looking behind the back of Buzz and RC and Woody as they're trying to catch up with the van and the moving truck, and it looks like a racing game. It looks like it could be a 3D racing game from the 32-bit era in a way.
Probably mean they'd have to reprogram it, and they probably didn't want to do that.
It must have been, yeah. So
because they'd have to make it. It'd have to look totally different on the Super Nintendo than the Sega version.
And the level is called Daytona.
Oh, look at that pun!
Yeah.
Huh?
So obviously they'd have to call it something else.
Daytona.
Let's go away.
Daytona.
So that's a little bit about the production of the game and how they developed it. Trent, I want to know how.
I want to know if he really loves me. I say a prayer for every heartbeat.
You can only sing songs if they come out in the year that this game came out. So anything by the Dog Pound you can do. But that sounds like it's a lot earlier than 1995.
Oh yeah, it was like 90.
How did you play this game?
Oh geez, actually, this is when I think the first time I played it.
If you talk about Johnny Z one more time, I swear to God, I'm going to throw you out of the game studio.
Well, we won't have any more podcasts then. Jeez, let's not talk about any Nintendo 64 games because, geez, I think every game we played together.
Did you?
Yeah.
I don't know this person.
And Justin Donato, well, they live right across the street from each other,
well, they didn't go to school with us.
No, they both went to Wyndham Tech.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I think the first time I rented this when I was living in Norwich from ShopRite.
When you were living in Norwich?
When I was living in Norwich.
This is news to me. We've known each other for 20 years.
You know what? I've said this years ago, and you said the same thing then.
Well, I never listen to what you say.
You're like, wait, you lived in Norwich? And I'm like, yes, this is happening.
Yeah, but you're saying...
This was in 6th grade.
I was going to say...
For like half a year. And maybe like a year or two.
Okay.
But I remember renting it from the ShopRite. Talk about like...
Ooh.
They had like 6 games to choose from.
Wow.
It was like Toy Story, NBA Live, Rugby 95, I think.
Ooh, that killer hit.
Yeah.
Talk about 7,800 copies.
Yeah, but Toy Story was one of the ones they had. And I was like, well, this is the one I'm getting because it looks amazing. And
so you rented it, you were by yourself.
Yeah, as usual.
Was it like a weekend thing?
Yeah, I think it was like a 2-day thing there. The games, it was like $2 to like rent a game there, because it's not like many people did.
So before I forget this, so when I was looking at the issue of GamePro that was talking about Toy Story, there was an ad in there from Blockbuster Video. Rent a system and 2 games for 3 days for $10.
Wow, because I remember renting the Sega Saturn from there. And I think it was
Why?
It was $20.
Well, I don't know. It was a coupon, so I don't know. Maybe it was like a special deal that
the systems were like $20. They came in like this huge briefcase.
The hard
the plastic. Yeah, they were like 20. They were either 20 or 25 to rent for 3 days.
What did you rent with the Saturn?
I don't know. Must have been Virtua Cop or.
You got the gun with it?
Virtua. No, I remember using the controller. Or was it Fighters Megamix? I might have.
That's a banger right there.
Yeah,
that's a good game.
Jesse Clark. I think he rented one too. Like Blockbuster, we would just ride our bikes down to Blockbuster because it was like we were just right.
But how would you get it back?
Yeah, we figure it away. It's not that hard.
You're lucky you didn't get ganked when you were going on Milk Street.
All right, well that's like 4 miles away from where we had to go. It'd be a little bit of a detour.
Gotta go through from Milk Street to West Ave.
Those are opposite ends of town.
I had to deliver a pizza on Milk Street one night.
Yeah, we all did.
It was scary.
Because you were a little hoe. So anyway, Toy Story, huh? I mean, it was a hard game.
It still is hard.
I know. Oh, wait, we're talking about the game?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was a difficult game. I don't even remember getting past, like, maybe the 3rd level.
That's because you're not good at games.
No, I know. I remember the first two. The first two levels, you had to knock out the toys and get them to the end of the level, right?
To be fair, this is one of those games where you're gonna play it for the first time. You're gonna maybe get to level 3. You're gonna learn about the level.
It's one of the
you're gonna play again.
Memorize where things are.
You're gonna get a little bit farther, and it's very at least as I remember it, it's very rewarding to go through and play more and more because you get better and better and better.
Not to say it's Beavis and Butthead level, but it's that kind on the Genesis. But it's the same kind of. You have to memorize where things are, because if you don't, you're just gonna die.
I'll go out on a limb and say it's a much more fun game.
Well, I know that,
Beavis and
but I'm just saying in terms of like memorization, trying to get to remember where things are.
If you make me play Beavis and Butthead on Super Nintendo ever again, I'm abandoning our friendship. So you rented it,
but yeah,
and you played it for a week, and you really liked it.
Yep.
And then,
I don't think I ever played it again. Until I got it later, years later on the Genesis.
The introduction for me, going back to 1995, I call him my brother. He's not even a best friend. My brother, Pat Musin. We basically met in kindergarten, and we've been friends ever since. Pat was... I would always be over Pat's house. Pretty much every weekend that I could. And Pat was... He was like the PC gamer before there were PC gamers. Like his dad...
He was a PC gamer?
Well, so his dad worked at... I think it was... He's going to lambaste me if I'm wrong about this, but because he listens to the podcast. But his dad worked at, I think, Computer Science Corporation. So he was like an IT guy or like a computer scientist.
Right. Hence the computer science.
Right, right, something like that. I'm not going out too far on a limb saying that. But he had like a bunch of those like old, like late 80s, early 90s big box PC games.
It's gotta be a big box.
And we're not even talking about like Windows 95. We're talking about like a DOS computer, like directories and stuff type of thing. And I remember Pat, he never had a video game system. He had this PC, and it was kind of cool because it was like nobody else had this, So when you went over his house, you knew you were going to see something you had never seen before. And he had like a Turtles game, but it wasn't Turtles the arcade game. It was, and I think it was called TMNT Manhattan Missions. It's
for the PC.
Yeah, it's kind of awful from the gameplay footage I've seen. If it's the game I'm thinking of, because it was a IBM compatible exclusive type of game.
Coming like 7 like diskettes.
Sort of, but I think they had I remember they had like a directory on his computer. It was like a CGA monitor, so it had like 12 colors or whatever, or like 24 colors.
Oh, jeez.
It was like that purple, and then like a harsh red.
Oh, I know.
And like that neon green.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. It did more colors than those few colors. It did
real high def.
Yeah, it was almost like an NES color scheme type of thing. But he had hard driving.
Oh, jeez.
And this was in like 1991 when I first went over his house. I remember he got turtles. He got actual turtles, and we raced them. They were like little mini ones.
He got actual turtles?
We like raced them across the carpet, and like him and his brother, Pat had his turtle, and his brother Matt had his turtle, and we raced them across the carpet to see who could get to the kitchen first.
Where are we going now?
We're reminiscing.
Talk about racing turtles.
I literally forgot about that until we just started talking.
Oh my god!
I think he had a game called World Class Leaderboard Golf. just like these weird, I think he had Space Quest too. That was.
I remember that one.
But Pat played like Half-Life on the computer. I remember going to his house and seeing that. Like the Medal of Honor games he played later on.
Yep.
He had all that stuff. But in about 1994, I think his mom had gotten him a Genesis 2, and it was the first time I had ever seen the Genesis 2. Up until that point, I had never experienced that system. The first time there you go, U.S. Gold. Oh, you're in trouble. That came out on the Genesis?
Allegedly. Anyway.
Yikes. The Genesis 2 came out in February of '94, and I believe that the first time I saw it, which was after Pat had gotten it, was at like a Lechmere or like a Comp USA, one of those computer stores.
Gee, yeah.
That
Comp USA,
and they had it, and it was in like one of those plastic containers where you couldn't get to it. It was displayed, where it almost looked like they made it look more like legendary that way. But so I would go over to his house, and we after the PC stuff was kind of done, we would play some Genesis or whatever. And I remember going to his house, and the first game that I ever saw at his house that I wouldn't say I was like jealous, but we played it and it was amazing, and I was like envious, like I wanted to have it, was The Lion King. Another Disney classic game.
Classic.
Hard, like not like kids can't beat it.
It was a horde,
but like a lot of fun, like really good animation, like Disney animators, that whole thing. Really good music, just the production value of those games was just better. It was just bigger, and it made those games better. And I remember, so I played that game at Pat's house, and I think that was probably late '94, because Lion King came out in November of '94. So this must have been, he might have gotten it at launch or shortly after. And I remember for Easter of 1995, I asked my mom, because the way Easter worked in my house is we all got one gift, not just candy.
Yeah.
We all got one. I don't know.
I think
is that how you guys did it? Most people I think just do candy, but we made Easter a little bit bigger, and we always got one present, and it wasn't anything big. Like I think my brother got I remember one year he got the Soundgarden album and Vitology by Pearl Jam or something like that.
Yeah, it was usually like a $20 gift or like an action figure, price wise.
For us,
something around there.
We could get away with a video game, but that was like it,
Yeah.
And so you could juice it a little bit and get like a $50 video game.
That's White Easter.
Shut up.
Shut up.
You mean like white chocolate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. And I remember getting Lion King for Easter.
Set it off.
And just being like so excited to play that game. And Pat introduced me to Lion King. So it was, again, the same kind of thing. He had Brutal Paws of Fury, which is a horrible, horrible
It is
game.
brutal.
Like, dude, why did you ask for Brutal Paws of Fury when you could have gone for Super Street Fighter 2?
Hey, if you don't know, you don't know.
Again, 94, 95, it's could have been on the discount rack,
Yeah.
He introduced me to World Series Baseball, which told me I never want to play World Series Baseball.
Wow. Then not a fan?
I never understood the batting mechanism. Like, you're up to bat, and the ball, it's like a first-person view.
Yeah.
And you're swinging, but you don't know where. At least with like those top-down games like baseball and Nintendo or like Sports Talk Baseball, the ball comes through the strike zone. As long as you swing, you're going to make contact. The World Series Baseball game, there was no cursor or anything. You just kind of had to swing when the ball was sort of in frame.
Yeah.
And hope that he hit it. So I never really understood the whole pitching
I
batting
liked
mechanism.
it. That was one of my favorite baseball games. I mean,
really?
Griffey was the top, but I liked all the World Series games.
Did you have them?
Yeah. One of them. I think it was 95.
I think he had the original when it came out.
I mean, they're all
from 94.
similar. All pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I think one of them had, was it Manny Ramirez on it in 95? I think there was a Cleveland Indian on one of them.
It could have. Oh, by the way, I counted 24 baseball games on the Sega Genesis over 9 different publishers. So there might have been actually like 2 series per publisher, but 9 different publishers. From like Flying Edge. Remember Flying Edge?
Yeah, because they made the wrestling games.
Flying Edge, yeah, they did the WrestleMania games.
They did the Double Dragon.
Sony,
too.
yeah, Sony ImageSoft was another one, and then you had Tengen with RBI Baseball. Acclaim did
Big Hurt.
Big Hurt. So we were talking about this last podcast, and I was like, I got to look up and see how many. And the Genesis, for the most part, was around for like 5-6 years. So you're talking about like 4 to 5 baseball games a year. Talk about crowding a market. But it was a similar thing for Toy Story. So I remember going to Pat's house and seeing Toy Story, and again being blown away by a game which I said, how does the Genesis keep getting better? Like, how do they keep making better and better games on this? And that was one of them that sadly I never got. But when I was at Pat's house, I really enjoyed the time playing it. He had like this little like 9 or 12-inch TV in his room with like rabbit ears. And which we played up until the Dreamcast in his room.
I think the standard for everyone, just about everyone I knew, everyone had a 13-inch TV in their room.
Yeah, Sylvania.
Yeah. Don't hate on Sylvania.
Orion.
Yeah. Dude, I think everybody had
Oinko or whatever.
It was
what
like
that brand?
if you were a kid and you had a 19-inch TV in your room, like You you had a lot of things going on. I remember everyone. I think I had a 13-inch TV in my room for like 10 years.
Oh yeah.
It's like everyone had it. The only way I got a 19-inch Toshiba was because it was like my grandma's hand-me-down. Like she had got a new one, and I got the 19-inch one.
Yeah.
Oh man, I thought I'd made it then. When you go from a 13-inch TV to a 19-inch TV, that's huge.
I remember when this just reminded me when you got a PlayStation 2, and your mom had moved to Chaplin, and you had gotten the S-video cords for your PlayStation 2, and you were showing me. You were showing me Virtua Tennis.
I think that was a Sylvania too.
You were showing me Virtua Tennis, and I was blown away by how much better the S-video cords looked.
Oh, dude, yeah, S-video cords, and when you had if you had a
CRT,
a CRT flat screen, a CRT,
dude,
the picture was crisp.
Money, dude.
Even
Seriously.
even when you hooked up your DVDs and everything with the S-video, man, it was really good quality.
That technology just worked really well. I mean,
but playing like PS2 games and everything.
I've got a discussion.
Quality was
I've got a
tight.
discussion about next. We're gonna do a next podcast. This is running too long, but I'm gonna be talking about CRTs versus modern setups and just kind of my thoughts after doing all this stuff and kind of going back and forth. Just kind of my perspective about it, but we'll get there. But needless to say, big thank you to Pat for kind of introducing me to those games, because otherwise I wouldn't have had a history with them, and they were and then I got into PlayStation right after that, so I really didn't go back to the Genesis after about 1990, late 1995. So I mean, I think June of '96 I got my PlayStation 1. So at that point, Genesis was over for me. It was like, it was like a hard stop.
I think I ended up selling mine when I got a PlayStation.
Oh, you got a PlayStation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much right after it came out.
Oh, here we go.
I got it at KB. In the first talk about not knowing what was going on, I got a Criticom.
Nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because it was probably discounted.
Yeah, because it couldn't have been like when it first came out. It had to be like a little bit after. I think it had gone through a price drop, maybe like a $50 price drop or something. Yeah. And some of the games weren't like 60 or 50 anymore. They were kind of like 30 and 40 at KB. So that was like one of the games I got. And I think I had that.
Did you instantly like?
Yeah.
Or were you wowed by?
You
wowed by the 3D
no,
and just said?
Because I feel like I should say I have other stories about the PlayStation.
All right, we'll hold on to them. So right now we're gonna take a little interlude, let you guys listen to a commercial, and we're gonna come back and give you our thoughts on both of these versions of the game and what we think of them, and if we think that it's reasonable for you guys to go out and give these games a shot and look for them and play them, because that's what this podcast is all about. Stay tuned.
And now a word from our sponsors.
There's a new hero in town, a whirlwind of action that's positively spooky. Yes, dare to wear the mask. From zero to hero, the mask is one lean green crime-fighting machine. He's a hard-hitting superhero as he battles the evil mask-stealing Dorian. He's a quick-draw dude with maskitude. Eye-popping, crime-stopping, or just killing time. Even Milo's putting a bite on crime. Dare to wear the mask. Somebody stop me. Figures each sold separately.
Thanks for bearing with us, folks. We are back from our break. Hopefully you enjoyed the commercial break. And now it's time for our discussion of Toy Story and our experience with the game in 2019. Trenton, what were your thoughts about this game?
My thoughts and prayers as usual.
Let's start with a general thought about Toy Story, and then we'll go into the differences between the two versions of the game themselves. But how does this game compare to when you played it when you were a kid? And do you think it's fun? Do you think it's enjoyable? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And
compare and contrast.
And then
let's talk about what you like and what you didn't like.
We'll get to recommendations.
It's about the same as I remember it. Maybe because it's hard to say because I did play it not that long ago, like less than a year ago.
And here's the difference
on the Genesis version.
I'm gonna let out a quick little secret that I didn't tell you.
Ooh.
I beat both versions of these games last week.
I beat both of them.
So I've got more experience lately with them, just playing them for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I can give my thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
Well, just off the playing both of them briefly, I think the Super Nintendo one plays a little bit better, but it feels like it's maybe a little bit easier on certain parts, like when you face Buzz Lightyear, knocking the whatever the orbs around him or whatever, like knocking those off and then shooting his laser. It was just like 1, 2, 3, and that was it. It was like the Genesis version is a little more harder. He's moving around more. His the laser on the Super Nintendo one.
He doesn't come at you in that boss fight. Like in the Genesis version, he comes at you. In the Super Nintendo one, he doesn't.
And the laser in the Super Nintendo one is just like this little. It's like zip, and then there's like a full beam on the Genesis version, so it's a little bit more difficult to avoid it.
But what about the platforming elements? The fighting of the enemies. The jumping, the moment to moment gameplay. What are your thoughts about that piece of it?
It's because I like Toy Story so much. It's kind of hard. I guess it's just kind of it's kind of standard like platforming kind of stuff. But just because it's Toy Story, I kind of it sways my opinion on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some weird in the Super Nintendo version as compared to the Genesis version. You're kind of more just like guess jumping on certain stuff, where you can't really see where you're gonna land.
But that's attributed to the sizing difference between the two consoles.
The stretching.
And you didn't get that far playing, but that's because you haven't played it in a while. And I think you got 3 or 4 levels in on each version.
Yeah, I got to the RC car
and
version
Super Nintendo. And those are the easier stages. As you get later into this game, the real estate of the left and right parts of the screen become that much more important because it starts becoming a lot more intense.
Right.
And that's where you see the separation of those two, the two versions. I mean, for me, the moment-to-moment gameplay is very satisfying. I love Toy Story just like you do, but the moment-to-moment gameplay, the game is hard because things are flying. Even on the Genesis version,
those damn planes.
The planes are coming at you.
and
there's
the
trains rolling underneath.
The Trisnanes, actually.
So you're dealing with, you got the balloons that are popping with flies and little steel balls coming out.
You think
of them.
They might be good, but they're not.
And so there's obstacles and things that can hurt you sort of all over the place. So you have to be very, very deliberate with your movements in this game. You have to be very slow, very calculated, no matter what part it is. But as you play this game more and more and you realize, okay, I know where this is, I know what's coming up here, and then you time your jumps a certain way, there's a cadence and a progression of this game as you play it more and more where you start to really enjoy it. And it's that thing where you like it more and more because of the fact that you're accomplishing it. If you played this game one time, you rented it for one night, and you played it once, and it was like, you died, you might say, this game's too hard, or you think it sucks because it's too hard. But it's, again, like we were saying, it goes back to, like, if you just keep playing this game over and over again, you get a little bit farther, a little bit farther, a little bit farther. You learn how to position yourself, like in that Buzz Lightyear fight on Genesis. He's kind of coming towards you. He's got the orbs flying, and you're not sure, okay, how far can my pull string go?
Yeah. And
you were kind of positioning yourself sort of like under him and getting whacked, left and right. So, but you learned from that. If you played that a second time, you'd say, okay, now I know kind of where I have to position myself to get past him. And it becomes a breeze. It honestly becomes a breeze after that. As you play this game more and more. So in terms of the moment-to-moment gameplay, I think it's a lot of fun. It is difficult, but it's very rewarding when you go back to this game. It's very responsive. When we talk about like the control is very, very responsive. When you use the pull string on the hooks to, like in the race with Buzz.
Yeah, that's when you gotta kind of
see.
You kind of gotta go a little bit slow because sometimes the sharks will pop out.
Right.
So you gotta time your jumps or
hit
them.
Very deliberate with that piece of it. I had a lot of trouble on the Super Nintendo with the hooks. I couldn't just mash the pull string button because I was missing the hooks. So I had to like jump and then stop myself and line myself up in the middle of the midair to hit the hook again. You didn't have trouble with that though. You were doing that just as well as you were on the Genesis version.
Yeah, I don't know. Didn't seem any different.
Yeah, but like the first level, it's you're getting the army guys out and getting the baby monitor, and then you're helping
move.
Yeah, go move it, and then you're getting the toys back in the chest, and then you're racing Buzz. So there's different things. They keep it fresh, but in terms of even if you're platforming, different things within the platforming level that you can be doing when it's that. And then later on in the game, you go to the arcade. Pizza Planet.
Yeah.
And you're trying to avoid the soda cans that are falling out of the machine as
I do remember that level.
As boys and girls are going left and right, and you're in the soda can or the soda container, the fountain drink, and you have to go down so that they don't hit you, so that you don't get a star point taken away.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Buzz is behind you walking, so you have to keep in front of him, because if he catches up with you, you lose a life. And the one thing about this game, and why you will die and why you will have to start over, 3 lives, no continues.
it just goes to game over.
Game over. Now,
right back to the beginning.
There are these 10 stars in each level, and if you get all 50, you get an extra life.
Yeehaw!
And when you get 300 stars cumulatively,
300,
you get an extra continue, and you need that extra continue. There's no way to beat
continuous life.
Huh?
It's like continuous life.
Right. When I played, so the Genesis version I've probably beat 4 or 5 times, and lately I played it again. The Super Nintendo one, they work a little bit differently. When you get when you lose a round of lives in the Genesis version, the 10 stars restart, so you're back at 0. In the Super Nintendo version, they stay where you had them. So if you were close to getting another continue, let's say you had 550 stars,
yeah,
you would get another continue right afterwards, where in the Genesis version, it would start you back at 0, so you'd have to get 300 additional ones. But the Super Nintendo game, in my opinion, is much harder. It's like the hard mode, because as you get later into this game and you get into Sid's room has these mechanical spiders. It's got yo-yos that are coming down when you're doing this high wire segment, and because there's less resolution on the screen, everything is cut off. You don't know what jumps you're making, where you're going. You had trouble, or even in the early going, you're like, "Where am I jumping to?" And I'm like, "Well, you got to jump to the right and make a leap of faith. It's there, but you
just don't know it."
Yeah, you just got to do it, and that's one of those things where you kind of, if you like a punishing difficulty with the game, that's the addition to go for, because you're going to get punished and you're going to learn for it, and then
at least
have to memorize it. The Super Nintendo is not unplayable. The game is
no.
It's a very playable game, but it's harder, especially for those later segments. The hardest level, in my opinion, in the game is not hard because of what you're doing. It's because how you're punished if you fail, and that's when you're in the claw and you have to knock Buzz off of the claw. When the claw's trying to pick him up.
I forgot about that.
You have to use your pull string to hit an alien up, and then hit it again in midair so it knocks
like
Buzz
bounces,
up.
right? Yeah.
And if you miss, it's gone, and you lose a life.
Jeez.
So you can go through 3 lives just like that. Game over. And this is after you've been through inside the claw, really inside the claw, where you take the aliens and you
get really inside the claw.
So there's some really punishing points of this game where you really got to be careful, and you just got to be willing to start the game over. But if you're willing to do that, this is one of those games that's just a ton of fun. And when you accomplish that goal and you beat the game, it's so rewarding, and it becomes a special game. It is for us, at least, when you think back on it and how fondly you think on it, because you had to play this game multiple times, and it endeared you to the game because you wanted to keep playing. As hard as it was and as stubborn as it was still enjoyable. The platforming is really good. The controls are really responsive, so even when you fail, okay, next time you go, you have total control over your character, that you're going to be able to make that jump the next time. I mean, this game is way more impressive for the Genesis than the Super Nintendo, because the Super Nintendo is a much more capable system.
Yeah,
it can kind of quasi do like pseudo 3D.
Yeah, a lot of those first levels, yellow, blue, and brown.
Oh, on the Genesis. Yeah, that's the one thing, is the Super Nintendo one is way more colorful.
Yeah,
it's a much prettier game to look at.
Yeah, it's definitely more vibrant. because I played the Genesis version and we switched over to the Super Nintendo version. Like right away, it's just it is brighter.
It's appealing in that way.
But I mean, it's not. That doesn't really change the game that much. But yeah, it is. It definitely looks a little bit better.
The Genesis one is easier.
But the fact that
the further you go into it, though, because you can see way more as you're
going. But the fact that they got it to look the way it does on the Genesis version is amazing.
It's just highly commendable.
Whoa, that's gonna be your no more amazing. It's highly commendable.
Yeah. So and then so you get through Sid's room and there's the hot segment where he burns you, and that's another one where without that real estate on the left and right of the screen, there's these yo-yos, these spiked yo-yos coming down.
Yo-yo Maz.
And you're just gonna run it. You have to do this like click clack, like back and forth on your D-pad to get Woody to keep going back and forth because you need to just go a little bit further on to see what's coming up before you run. And then you got to let out the fire on the cereal, the old cereal bowl. But then there's the Scud level, which is the same kind of thing. You're on Roller Bob and trying to get away from Scud at the same time. And then you get to the Daytona level.
Daytona.
Which that's another one you guys got to take a look at because you're looking at it and you're saying, how is this possible on a Genesis? It just doesn't make any sense that they'd be able to do this. I mean, it's a 3D. Well, I don't know if they're using polygons, but it's three-dimensional. I mean, they're scaling like into the screen.
How they do that?
Which you couldn't do on the Genesis, like 3D scaling. I mean, it's. And then the last level is I said that they had a shooter segment. You're not shooting anything, but you're moving forward and avoiding the cars and the trucks and the red, yellow, and green.
What?
The lamps, the stop
Oh,
lights.
traffic light.
Traffic light. Listen to me. And that's the part where you land into the van and then it's the end of the game. So there's just quite a few different segments. Again, it's just very satisfying. I highly recommend this game. Do you know how much this game costs?
On
eBay?
I believe because I don't know how much a complete copy is, but
the Toy Story one I got for $6 or $7.
Yeah, because I was gonna say just the card itself on either one is about like $7-8.
Absolutely, all worth every penny of that. Either version.
It's a hard 7.
I would say if you're not as adept with platformers or you just want a little bit easier of a go, especially later in the game, go for the Genesis version. It's the version that was made for it. It's the game that was designed that way. It was designed for the Genesis, and then they ported it to Super Nintendo. That's the one.
It's more impressive on the Genesis.
Well, it is. It's got the extra level, and it's also the one that's more regarded as the better version because it wasn't just chopped and screwed like the Super NES is more colorful. They both play about the same, but because you lose that resolution, it just kind of looks a little stretched out, and you lose a lot of that screen real estate later on in the game, and it makes it punishingly difficult. If you like punishingly difficult platformers,
you don't have a Genesis,
if you're willing to, or you don't have a Genesis and you're willing to go through that, then I can't not recommend the Super Nintendo. I had a lot of fun with the Super Nintendo one. I was actually more satisfied getting through the Super Nintendo one, understanding how difficult that was. So if you like really difficult platformers, this is that version is the one to go for. But,
yeah, and luckily it's not one of those. It's not like a $50 or $60 game,
Rystar?
No, Rystar is like $30.
Is it really?
Yeah.
In box, it's ridiculous.
Oh.
It's like in the hundreds.
Yeah, it's weird. That like usually
because it was the cardboard box. That's why.
No, I know, but still the box. Yeah, I did look that up recently. I'm like, wait, it can't be right because they had like loose cards for like 30 or 40, and then there's people like $150 for inbox. I'm like,
just get the loose card.
Hell?
Just get the loose card. That's one I've never played before.
Yeah.
But yeah, so play this game, get it, play it because it's good. It's no Beavis and Butthead certainly, especially on Super Nintendo.
Right.
So
just imagine you were back in '95 and the first Toy Story had just came out.
Yeah.
Did they even? Did they give up on the Toy Story? They didn't make a Toy Story 4 game, did they?
No, I don't think so.
It's slipping.
But they're not making licensed games really anymore. That's not really a thing. There was no
You would-
no Zootopia game.
You would think they'd kind of cash in on the nostalgia and maybe I don't know, remaster the original Toy Story or make a new Toy Story for it that was similar to this one.
Well, they did make the Toy Story 3 toy box, which ended up turning into sort of like the Disney Infinity games, but those fell by the wayside a few years ago.
The only one I remember, I had never played it, the Toy Story and the Wii. It's like a bunch of mini games, I think.
Yeah. Toy Story Mania?
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Toy Story 64, was that with Buzz Lightyear?
Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the rescue.
Right.
It's
Is it kind of like Donkey Kong, kind of?
It's a collectathon made by Traveler's Tales, same company. John Burton programmed it. That version is a lot of fun if you like Banjo-Kazooie or Super Mario 64 or any one of those Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's kind of like what's cool about it is like you're in the house and you're running around the house as Buzz Lightyear with everything.
Yeah, I remember playing that
looking
one.
massive. It's actually a lot of fun. It's mundane, if you like a slower paced game where you're, collecting all the Bo Peep's sheep or, you get trying to go to get all the tokens and find out where they are and do a boss fight and, that kind of thing. I really like it. Liz and I played it a number of years ago and we actually tried it out again. We got through the first level and got all the requirements or whatever. It's just one of those games that's fun if you just want to hang out and not be too stressed while playing a video game. Toy Story 2 is actually really good, and I think that it was on PS1, 64, and Dreamcast. And I mean, either one is probably fine. I would say go for either the 64 version or the Dreamcast version if you have a 64, because
I mean, obviously, I would assume the Dreamcast would be the definitive version.
it is. It's got you can do it in 480p and VGA, and if you got a VGA box, but if not, I mean, the 64 one is just as good. The PS1's got a lot of that warping. That PS1 is known for, and the graphics.
The triangles.
Yeah, just like the walls are like wobbly and stuff like that. I would say Toy Story 1 is more of a passion for Traveler's Tales, and they were more successful with that game. But Toy Story 2 is fun if you like the collectathon. But I think that's about it as far as Toy Story is concerned. So if you guys have any thoughts about Toy Story, any stories that you want to share, feel free to. We've posted and we're going to post about the release of this game. When you see that, post a story, post a memory, just something quick about this game if you did play it as a kid, and what your experiences were. Who were you playing it with? What was going on in your life? That's what this podcast is all about. So
what's really going on?
And then if you have other suggestions about what games we should play or what you'd like to see on the podcast, feel free to send us an email or hit us up on Instagram and give us a suggestion. We'd be happy to cover games that you guys had in your history, in your past, that you want to see covered, or you want to learn a little bit more about the history of that game and how it was developed. We'd be happy to cover it for you. We are at the Turbo Duo at gmail.com. and at the Turbo Duo on Instagram, and on Facebook. What is how do they find us on Facebook, Trent?
Same deal. The Turbo Duo. Yeah.
If you're looking on YouTube, try the Turbo Duo podcast or the Turbo Duo cast to try to find us. It's hard to find us if you just plug in the Turbo Duo, because you're just going to find a lot of information about the TurboGrafx 16.
Yeah, but if you just go onto our Instagram page and then just click the link on there, it kind of goes to our Podbean feed, and I put the links for all the YouTube and iTunes right on there, so you can just click. It's 2 clicks. I know it's a lot of work. 2 clicks will get you to everything.
And with nothing else, thank you guys so much for listening. Be safe, be happy, be healthy, and keep it retro.
Oh, yeah.